All right, so good evening. Just like we expect, the study session today will be anchored by Khatunmi, and she'll be taking us on sociology of development. This will be a nice one. I can see the text, and it's going to cover the assignment as expected. All right, thank you. You can go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Good evening. I hope we've enjoyed our break from having this session. So today, like I promised the last time that we had a conversation, that we are going to be looking into the assignments, but I'm going to be taking only chapter 2, 4, and 6 today because it's actually a lot. I'm very sure it's not easy for a lot of people to read this book. Now, our assignments that the professor or lecturer gave to us was, I want to believe there's a comma in the state. So the state, healthcare, and women in development process, the Nigerian situation. So even if we're going to talk about either the state, healthcare, and women, we are going to be talking about it from Nigerian perspective, what's currently happening in our nation, and why is Nigeria the way it is in terms of development and all those key factors that play out every day in our society. Okay. First, before I start, a lot of people will say, oh, is he telling us to summarize each chapter? What is he telling us to do? I believe personally that he wants us to inculcate all these chapters in, making a case for development in Nigeria, not necessarily saying, oh, according to chapter 2, but of course, when we're talking about, when we're writing the paper, you have to write something about how, oil has influenced or has impacted development in Nigeria, because you cannot really talk about Nigeria without talking about the oil boom that has happened in the country. Another stuff that will be expected is, you can't just say, oh, let's just put in, let's say, chapter 4, and you want to start summarizing. Even you, while writing the paper or the assignment, you get bored. You're like, oh, am I here to summarize? So I'm not going to be giving us this conversation today as a summary, right? I'm just going to keep talking about it in terms of development so that anybody that wants to write the paper will kind of understand what each chapter is talking about and how it relates to the assignment. Yeah. It's not going. What's happening? Okay. So the first chapter that he said we should look into is chapter 2. And chapter 2 simply states the state, social theory, and the human condition. That is the, sorry, let me not forget. That's chapter 1, sorry. Chapter 2 is the state, social science, and national development, an analysis of human condition and its emancipation. So emancipation simply means liberation. So you hear emancipation a lot when we talk about the South African fight for independence. Now, what this is simply stating is that the state, I hope everybody understands that when we talk about states in development or states in sociology, we're not talking about independent states like Lagos, Abuja, Lagos, Kano. We're not talking about things like that. We consider a state to be a country or a nation, right? So in this case, we are talking about Nigeria. So the social sciences and the national development. So in use of the word social science, we are also taking into consideration courses like political science, urban development. Let me pull out some that were listed in the book. They are taking into consideration sociology and also other courses that make up sociology. And for this, for the introduction part of this chapter, it simply states that the author was talking about how if we want to understand Nigeria as a whole and we want to understand development and all of that, we need to look at our national development strategy as a nation. We need to look, we cannot remove Nigeria from its, national goal. And remember when we were talking about dependency theory, and I said that dependency theory came from a place of countries, saying that if we are going to be developed, we need to have a national plan. I keep using examples of countries like UAE to make that definition or that conversation clearer to everybody. So for this text, the author states that the emphasis of states, right, is critical to development and social science as a whole. And we should understand that social science is the scientific study of man in relations to his environment, meaning that if we are considering Nigeria as a country, we should also know that social science is very, very significant to Nigeria. And we cannot say, how people are advocating for STEM and all the rest. We need to understand that we need social science a whole lot. And we need to also understand that the problems of African states is understanding social science in relation to national development. So if we want to sit down and say, oh, okay, like all the normal complaints that we have, that we talk about that, oh, education is bad, roads are bad, government is not doing anything. Even in sociology, there's what they call social politics, right? That we start looking at the behaviors of political leaders and all this stuff. Sociology also looks at education, looks at poverty, looks at women. So there is no how we're going to talk about the problems of Africa or the things and the challenges that we faced in the last 50 years without looking at the state and without considering social science. That's why she started from that point. She also states that the role of a state, or the role, let me use, states, country, the role of a country in development is very crucial. You can never ever take it away from the state. So that's the introduction part of this topic. Now, the state and social science. It simply means that states or countries are driven by different factors. And she took note of different theories that can be used to explain the factors that drive a country or drive a state. So she used an example of natural theory, which explains that state as society is organized, is sovereign, it has a political body, it's a natural phenomenon, right? And more valuable than individuals who are its citizens. So that a state will exist, whether we like it or not, because people are going to create natural boundaries, create territories, and try to have sovereignty, no matter how we think about it or we look at it. So that is natural theory. Another theory that was stated was the social theory, and it emphasizes on human nature, that it differs from both natural and divine theories, which we are going to come to later. The social theory is stating that as human beings and as individuals in society, there's something called social contract, that we agree within ourselves that somebody should rule us, right? So if you remember when we're talking about Marxism's idea, Karl Marx ideas and all those other people's ideas when we're talking about sociology of development at the initial stage and how people see it. And I gave an example with people saying that, oh, if government can actually, create social amenities for us, why then do I work? Imagine if at the end of every month I get $500 in my account, and that's okay for me. I'm living in maybe a rural community, I don't need much, and I'm okay, I'm fine. So no need to work. So at the end of the day, you're driving an information to the citizens that, okay, there is no need for you to participate in the economic growth of the country, and we are self-sufficient. And we're going to talk about that when we're talking about chapter 4, which talks about, oil in Nigeria as well. So social theory, the ruler and the ruled agree on their respective role and their obligation to one another. So another thing she talked about was, or the author noted in her book, was the divine theories as well, and the last one that we should hold on to for this chapter 2 is what she called force theory. So force theory, I like to define force theory. I just pulled out something. Just give me a minute. I pulled out something to explain force theory. Okay. I want to give us the definition of force theory from a layman perspective so that everybody can understand. Now, when she was talking about the state and, still the state and the social sciences, she made note of the adaptation of what, or the theory that has, or the theory that we can use to explain the Nigerian situation is what she called force theory. So what is force theory? Force theory is the process of establishing a new government or country through the use of force. So if we look at our independence, if we look at the relationship Nigeria has had with the North and the South and all the moving parts that is happening in the country, we can actually agree with that. So some people will come and say, we've not had a proper post-conflict reconciliation after the Biafra war. So we have issues with the East, right? And currently they are still doing the IPOB, no movement and all that stuff. So we still see all the moving parts and people, are not happy. We still find minority groups still having some form of revolution towards the state, right? So as a social scientist, you're understanding the behaviors and the moving parts of what is happening in the country and explaining it in terms of development. So back to what we're doing. According to the author, she states that force theory does not see the state of natural expression. Force theory on its own can evolve the society, right? It means that a small number of people impose their will on reluctant majority. And all of us can actually agree that that is what is happening in Nigeria. Even when we now move forward talking about our healthcare sector, we get to see that, okay, who are the people making decisions? And there are broader concerns in terms of, pharmaceutical industries are different from medical doctors. There's no unity in that sector, right? In the health sector, which we're still going to be talking about in this conversation. She also states that force theory emphasizes that the state was not built on any contract and that neither can it be an organic unity, neither can it be an organic unity. So some people will travel to countries like Rwanda, Ghana, and they're just like, oh my God, that country is so peaceful. You can see that their development strategies are on point and all that stuff. But someone that is looking at Nigeria cannot actually say all those things. And the reason we cannot hold that for Nigeria is because there's no social contract binding us and it's not organic. Like we don't speak in one language, we don't have the same interests. And again, the diversity of our resources, it's also, which, she said in chapter 4, asking the question that is oil a cost to Nigeria and all of that. Again, a force theory states that the dominant class is united in the pursuit of implementing a class project and influencing the overall ideology of development on the larger society. So you see things like, even when we're talking about our national goals and our national strategy as a country, we see things like, how is this project going to benefit the poor man? You hear people asking that question. And that's because the people enforcing or creating these rules, yes, they might say, oh, they're elite, and we can see how, this intervention can trickle down into society. But in the real sense of it, for an ordinary citizen to get to that point, to access those funding or resources, it is so difficult. So I'll give an example. During COVID-19, we had, someone sent something, please, which topic are we treating? What chapter? Okay, so we're talking about chapter 2, and we are talking about our assignment. So the lecturer gave us an assignment, and he said we should do the state healthcare and women in development process from the Nigerian perspective. So he gave us different chapters in this book so that we can read, and we should write, a paper based on that. So that's what I'm taking chapter by chapter, so that when you're writing your paper, you're informed. I would have loved to share a paper for everybody to say, you know what, everybody can go and submit, but we have to be unique in our own approach. That's why we're doing this. Okay. So I was giving an example that during COVID-19, we had the government say, if you've not been earning income, or, you are really struggling to survive, and that has been happening to you in the past 6 months, you can apply for these funds, right? Now, are we going to say that people that have access to digital communication, smartphones and the rest, would they have that information? How are they going to register? How are they going to track them? How many people, there are still people in Nigeria that don't even have banks. My village, for one, don't have a bank. If we need to go to the bank, we have to go to Auchi. And that's because we've had a lot of security issues where people come and rob banks, and the banks just decided, you know what, we cannot stay here anymore. We are moving to a more safer location, or whatever the case may be. So if the government is creating all those strategies, yes, we see all the things you're doing for poverty alleviation, but how does that affect, and how does that relate to how does that affect, and how does that relate to development in Nigeria? They cannot actually say that we are being developed. So now, the social science part of things, it makes it possible for us to systematically explain things that are going on in the social science perspective. We analyze, we identify, analyze, and explain structures and changes in society. So we cannot just come and say, you know what, we're having hoodlums everywhere, or people have decided not to go to school, or this community have decided that, you know what, the girls are not going to go to school. We cannot just sit down and say, something actually happened in that community for people to say, you know what, we're going to stay back. And I'll give you an example. So we have people doing developmental projects, and one of my clients, she does boreholes in different communities. And she created a borehole in a community. All of a sudden, a chief took over the borehole and said, you know what, if you want to fetch water, you pay 15 naira, right? So that chief is trying to economically empower himself. And she was doing a developmental project that would make sure that, okay, if these people are able to have borehole, the girls don't have to go to the stream very early in the morning and miss out on, their early days in class. So they can meet up. But now somebody has even made the situation worse, that you now have to pay to access that clean water, and the girls will rather still go back to the stream. Have she mitigated the problem that was in the community? No, she has not. So when we talk about social sciences, it explains. So you now identify, when you get into a community, you now identify the roadblocks. Because of your social science background, you're able to see and forecast the issues that will happen. That's why we always advise that when people are going into communities to do projects, you have to find out, you have to ask, who are the people in control of? I'm not talking about local government. I'm talking about the locals, like the people in the communities that really control the community. Some communities are controlled by hoodlums, and you need to settle them if you want any project you want to do to fly, right? So I've seen people sharing palliatives during the COVID-19, and people stopped them from sharing them because you have not really addressed, the people that you're sharing it to. They've not talked to the body. In fact, people have gone into Makoko and they've chased them out, that they don't want their intervention program because they are not talking to the right set of people. So as social scientists and social science, we're able to identify and analyze all those structures and all those changes that happen within a state, and explain to authorities that are creating those interventions, right? Or creating the liberation that, okay, this is why it is important. Another thing is social science brings clearer clarity of our understanding on human population interactions with one another. So we advance knowledge and we help to confront issues like malaria, HIV and AIDS, trafficking and poverty. So human trafficking and poverty. So an ordinary person can just say, you know what, I want to empower girls in this community, right? And you're empowering girls in the community. Do you know what the ripple effect will be? So we've seen a community where they have a lot of teen pregnant young girls, teen pregnant ladies, and we did a project in that community somewhere outskirts of Abuja. And we did that project, and we saw that the next year when we went back to do that project, they actually chased us out of the community. And the reason is because the ladies that went to school previously, they now understood their rights. They knew how to take care of their babies better. They were so much more independent because we didn't just teach them, basic English and the rest. We gave them handcraft. So they were, economic empowerment. So as social scientists, we are able to confront all those issues, but at the same time, understand the interactions that happen in that population. So if you don't have social science background, you might just get angry that what's wrong with these people, why are they? But it's explained to us that as social scientists, we're able to explain the state, we're able to explain the country as a whole. This aspect of this conversation will be relevant to us when we move forward. So the state and national development, right? So the state has identified like problems, in development relating to Africa and African environment as a whole. So when we think about Africa, right, and when we think about, which we are still going to talk about in the state and the social science in Africa, when we think about Africa, and when you ask people to just write down 3 things that relates to Africans' development, right, we get a lot of people writing things like violence, chaos, corruption, and they're not far from the truth. Because again, remember when we started this conversation, we said that for this explanation, we're going to hold on to first theory, right? So if you're writing your paper, you can say, oh, Nigeria can be characterized under, or can be explained better with the use of first theory, and you just give, keep giving all the points with that. So when we characterize, Nigerians' politics or Nigerians' environment as a whole, we tend to say things like violence, chaos, corruption, and it's as a result of that, we see things like struggle for power, fraction of the dominant class, lack of ideology, lack of focus-driven approaches, the inability to perform its primary role of protecting class interests and properties. We also see things like economic and political issues, and the author identifies economics and political perspective as 2 critical factors in development process. So, which she is not wrong about, because remember, beginning of this, study group and stuff, we did a differentiation between economic growth and economic development. And we are not going to, be here if we're not actually talking about both things. Now, why are we talking about economics and politics and at the same time sociology? First, you need to note that these are all social sciences courses. And again, no nation can actually grow or advance without their economics. And the ability of a nation to be under control or power of any kind is because they have a political system. Whether you want to say is authoritarian, unitarian, democracy, whatever you want to call it, there is presence of politics. In fact, who said that? Adam Smith said that man is a political animal, right? I think, is it Adam Smith? Razak, tell me. I don't know who said that. I can't remember.
I don't the scholars well, Adam Smith, yes, is a great contributor to sociology.
Okay. That said, man is a political animal, but let me see all the people that is. Let me be calling their names. Okay. All right. So that's why you're seeing economics and politics in the same conversation. So while economic development provides the material basis of political development, political thoughts, while economic development provides the material basis for economic development, they are concerned with 2 things. man's survival and man's development. So when we talk about economic development, remember we talked about HDI, right? So we talked about longevity, education and health. So these are all components of man's survival and man's development. Political science, on the other hand, it talks about how man acquires power, executes power, distributes power, and also manage power, and also the general authority of the state. So the link between politics and development is not, it's not different at all. It's the same thing. You cannot talk about development without talking about politics, because we're also playing world politics when we're doing development stuff. So some people believe that the figures we see online and all the research that UN and all these people come and tell us that is happening in our country are all manipulated, right? Based on different state interests, different countries, and where they see themselves. Some people argue that, oh, why is the US not in the list when they talk about poverty? Because people are really poor and living below poverty line. And people just tend to make all that conversation. So now the harmonization of social science needs to be done by the states in order for the state to achieve its development objectives. So what this number 2 point is telling us about the state and national development is that for the state to be able to create a national development plan that is concrete and can stand the test of time, they need to inculcate social sciences to be able to achieve the objective of the state, and also close or mitigate or what other word can I use? Engage different classes, right? So even if we're still going to have rich and poor and all those differences in class, the state should be able to inculcate social sciences to help them, create the national development strategy and national development plan to make it happen. Now, national development, the human condition, and the discourse for emancipation. Like I said, it's very important that we understand that emancipation is liberation. So what they are saying is national development, the human condition, and a discourse for emancipation. What me, Khatunmi, understand by this is that the national development plan we've been talking about all along, then the human condition. So we're taking note of things like class, we're taking note of things like survival, opportunities, economic liberation, and all that. So the human condition, so where you find yourself, you as a human being, what have you attained, and how can you be liberated based on the national development that the country has actually set for every individual. So we see countries that say that, oh, if you come here, you're going to progress regardless of whoever you are, regardless of the class that you find yourself. You have the chance to, go up the rank, mobility, and then change the course of your life, right? It doesn't happen like that in India. So what does this mean? So how we discuss human conditions and the effect of emancipation within this context, it talks about three critical elements, right? It talks about labor, work, and action, right? That is what the author actually puts under this. Labor, work, and action. And it sees, so how does man see and define his social reality in terms of his own objective and condition? Remember when I started having this, like when I started talking about this particular subtopic, I said that how I see it is a human being, like an individual survivor, right? So that's what the author is actually talking about when she says that. So for her, herein lies the relevance of national liberation that man can achieve, if he connects to things like political freedom and economic empowerment. He's also saying, so Marxist, she noted that Marxist describes this as the realization of freedom and morality in a unity of individuals' will and the absolute will. So she noted that we need to, as a nation, we need to be able to create an atmosphere that gives individuals political freedom and economic power. So now when you're writing this paper, you need to think about it, that does Nigeria give you economic freedom and economic empowerment, and how has that affected? So even if we say that based on our topic, right, let me go back to the topic. So even if we say, let us vote for good healthcare, how do Nigerians want healthcare to look like? Have Nigeria given you the political freedom to express your choice. At that point, you can then take some things from chapter 2 to explain that. As a woman, what does political freedom mean to you? Or what does economic empowerment mean to you? Of course, like, men can still, come and have that debate and talk about it, that, oh, even us too, not that we have political freedom. I have gone to polling booths and, I've seen chaos, I've seen violence, but because of this assignment, it is focused on like state, healthcare, and women, right? So how are we going to connect everything together and make everything relatable? So back to so still on national development, that's the third point. We have human emancipation will start with the economic sphere, the economic empowerment of people, the access to resources and democratization of the ownership of the means of production, before proceeding to the political ideology, right? A well-coordinated development effort must therefore reflect and be responsible and also show a concern for social progress, such as advancements in science and technology, in industrialization and people democracy. So what this is simply saying that for us to even for us to get to the point of human emancipation, for us to even bring that up as a topic, we need to first understand that the people that we are saying that we want to liberate, do they have access to resources? Do they have access to means of production? Are these people economically empowered? What does the economic space look like for them before we can then come and say economic liberation? Because sometimes it's almost an insult having that conversation with people that, oh, Nigeria has created projects that you can thrive. And I'm just like, mind who you have that conversation with. Not everybody's on the same pedestal, so just chill. The author is also saying that development will address poverty, inequality, and insecurity, and banish feeling of widespread frustration, which is true. The second thing she also says is that development should also be an anchor on equity, sustainability, production, and empowerment. It will create positive energy in people that will make the people live long and healthy lives, to be acknowledgeable, to have access to resources and social services needed for decent standard of living, and to be able to participate in the life of society. So the two factors of development that is needed for development efforts to be brought is that she noted was improvement in human conditions and the process of liberation, or the process of emancipation. The last point, the state and social in Africa, social science in Africa. So when we talk about this, we try to hold back to, or go back to our colonial history and try to understand the root causes of some problems, which again, dependency theory talks about it, that, oh, we are depending on our colonial masters for who we are and what we have and how we are going to, in fact, the colonial masters still own our factors of production, the means of production, what would I call it? Yeah, that they still own all of that. So for her, she states that the level of state formation in Africa is very low, so low that it can be argued that the state has not emerged. So a lot of people, especially political scientists, when they're talking about Africa, they're like, we are just 54 countries, but we can break some more. Like, we can actually become maybe 70 something, because some nations are too large. And we'll talk more on that when we talk about the oil, boom, and how Nigeria has to support other African countries. I hope I'm able to deliver on this. But yeah, so some people will argue that, the state has not emerged, that state in Africa remains a low level of primitive accumulation of massive deployment of force, struggle between classes, and struggle within a dominant class. Meaning that the reason why, so we see the whole dethronement or the whole coup that happened in Gambia, And people are just having that conversation again about political stability in Africa. Is it really achievable? Is there a time where we're going to see that, okay, everything is going to be settled? We look at countries like Cameroon, Congo, the Republic of Congo. We look at Liberia is just a little bit stable now. Some countries are coming to mind, but I don't know. I can't pronounce them. But yeah, so when I remember them, I'll share with you guys. So just looking at Africa as a continent and understanding like what is happening within these countries, I know that we want to compare Ghana to Nigeria, but then again, in comparison, will you look at things like their population, right? Will you look at things like their national strategy, why these countries are they are? So we talked about this when we're talking about foreign policy on Monday, and how countries, there are so many things that influence their foreign policy. And I think it was in one class that I, went to, and they said that Nigeria is the big brother of a lot of states, right? So that's why Nigeria is the way they are. They can't go to war with other African nations and all that stuff. So the author actually recognizes that, and he says that because of the way African states are, it leads us to conclude that the state is weak. The state arises from fragmentation of the dominant class and resulting in chaos that inhibits the institutionalization of homogenic order. So let me explain that. She concludes that the state is weak. I believe all of us understand that. She also states that the state arises from the fragmentation of the dominant class, meaning that once a group of people, which we see when we talk about, minority groups in Nigeria, right? So once a group of people are not identified, they want to start up their own. So we talk about this when we say, we identify regions like, or conversations around things like Biafra, right? You see that that's a fragmentation that has happened in Nigeria, and, of a dominant class. Because of course, when we think about the tribes in Nigeria, you cannot remove Igbo. You cannot exclude Igbo from that conversation. So I will identify them as a dominant class, and they want to come up, and that will result in chaos of the institution as a whole and affect the homogenic order. So affect the whole nation. So there is no how that you can. So when you pick out Africa, when in a country, right? So let's take the last line as the country social science in Africa, right? Social science in Africa, as a political scientist, as an economist, you pick out Africa and you say you want to even study Africa and understand the concepts of development. You see yourself struggling with a lot of things, a lot of information. You see that what you're even researching or what the information you're getting is building upon, you cannot even escape it. Talk about the fragmentation in the dominant class. You cannot escape talking about violence. You cannot escape talking about how weak the state is. So when you're even talking about the weakness of a state, you hear things like non-state actors, right? ISIS, Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda in the African system. You cannot do without talking about all those things. Yes, America has things like KKK, but do they have them under control? Somewhat, because they don't go around constituting total users to the system. So you cannot, have that, comparison with them. Another thing is, she stated is that they cannot institute a homogenic process, which would be a way for the dominant class or the dominant culture. So for people that are, just a minute. So when people talk about homogenic in society, I just want us to understand that homogenic means, or it refers to the cultural dynamics by means of which a social group claims and sustains a leading and dominant position in a social hierarchy. So when have been saying homogenic, and I'm very sure people are like, okay, what does that mean in concept to this or in relation to this? It simply means in sociology, please. I'm not saying you should use this same thing in in political science or in economics, they might have their own definition of what it means. But in sociology, this simply means the dominance of one group over the other, or you can better expatiate by saying that it refers to the cultural dynamics by means of which a social group claims and sustain a leading and dominant position in the social hierarchy. So, from beginning slideshow. Okay, so African society is crisis ridden, making the state violent, irrational, and intolerant of opposition. The weakness of the state in Africa creates a problem of its inability to implement a class project. So meaning that because of the way Africa is, right, even if development experts, want to come and create an initiative, they are very, very worried about the impact of that. So imagine people that have gone to Borno and they've built 50 schools. They've spent billions of naira building all of that, calling experts, training their teachers and doing all that stuff. What has happened in Borno today? ISIS has taken over like a huge part of the state, and somebody you're calling to say, come and put money in development, they'll just be like, okay, why are we pumping all this money into Africa on this project when the state is having, problems in terms of state violence? So in conclusion to this topic, it simply states how successful is a state able to drive meaningful development efforts in a function of its capacity, right? And how is it able to implement policies? Now, when we are writing our assignment, back to the topic again, and we want to inculcate social science chapter 2 into it, I want to believe that we'll first do a little bit narration of Nigeria and things that have impeded its development process. So we start talking about non-state actors, the violence that have happened, the economic instability and political instability in the states. And we start talking about the relevance of social sciences to mitigating all these things, saying that social scientists can help us, identify these things early, analyze these structures, analyze this behavior or the manipulations that are happening within the states. Also recognizing that even if sociology is a huge part of this conversation, we still need other, departments in social sciences that play key and relevant roles in understanding all this process. So we take note of things like the political sciences, the economists, yeah, I think I pronounced that right. Economists as well. Some people want to say urban and regional plan is also in social sciences. We look at humanities as well. So you can just go browse courses in social science and just, find out how they relate to development. So you can just use this as a starting point, right? And you can also explain that you can see how the state is being structured. First, you need to talk about how Nigeria is not just Nigeria. Nigeria is in Africa, and Africa is, characterized under violence, blah, blah, blah. Then you talk about, okay, speaking from a Nigerian point of view, how has that affected? Of course, if we're talking about violence happening in Chad or ISIS, we can now talk about how that affects the borders in Nigeria, right? So you can then pick from that and say, okay, we can then pick from that and get into talking about who are the people that are most affected by ISIS and all that. Yes, men are affected, but women are also affected as well. And when we have conversations about women, we tend to say women and children, right? And even in the case of war, and we look at places like Cameroon and what is going on in Cameroon as well. Cameroon has a border with Nigeria, so from the Calabar axis of things, we can then talk about how things like sexual violence and all those things that affect women in terms of insecurity and instability in the country. So we have people that stand to end rape. Is that the organization? I can't remember, so let's not use it. So I've had conversations with people and they say, oh, there are people that are being raped in political rallies, people being raped at polling booths and all those things. So when you're talking about political instability, and if people have the access to express what they truly want from the state or even contribute to development, then you can then use chapter 2 and build off your introduction to the assignment. Are we all clear on chapter 2 before I move? I need feedback. Okay, amen.
Well done.
Okay, so.
Okay, I was even trying to understand I thought you were talking on one of the weeks. Well, I didn't know you were treating the assignment, but I was following.
Okay, does anybody have any question? And do you guys understand? It's only MM that is answering, but okay, I want to believe everybody understands. I'm going to move. So now, chapter 4. Chapter 4 is talking about understanding the struggle of Nigerians oil, what development option for an emerging African power in the 21st century. She talks about okay, so I'm just going to start. This chapter analyzes the various forces, interests, and consequences of the increased struggle of oil resources in Nigeria, Niger Delta to be specific, and in the oil-rilled Gulf of Guinea as well. The author talks about, the oil that Nigeria has been part of, or a major problem, and she also links it to the inability of the country to various political regime and our immense wealth, and also lay foundation for a robust economy. So in this chapter, she talks about monocultural economy. Is that what she talked about? I think so. Okay. Yes, monocultural economy. We were saying that Nigeria is an agrarian society. We're all happy about it. We're doing stuff. Once we got the oil boom in the 1970s, boom, everybody just left the farm and everybody went to the rigs to, get their own, portion of the national cake and all of that. And the author is simply saying that Nigeria did not use that opportunity to develop itself, right? So when she looks at other countries like Gabon in Africa and what they've used their oil to do, it is tremendous. Yeah. So according to the author, right? So according to UNDP, their report for 2011, it stated that in that HDI that we talked about, Nigeria is 156 out of 187 countries that were analyzed. 156. That is our own, maybe our own, whatever we call it, our own index would be like 0.2 if we are that low on the index. So after looking at our longevity, after looking at our level of literacy, and after looking at our what's the third one? I can't remember. HDI factors. I can't remember. But I know longevity, standard of living, right? So after looking at those three things, they say that Nigeria is 156 out of 187. So she also noted that Nigeria's oil industry has largely been dominated by Western oil multinationals operating on the shores and offshore of the Niger Delta. So we hear things like Shell and Ogoni oil spillage, and we look at towards Shell. We see companies like LNG in Borno, and I don't know if anybody has come across a video where there are lots of fishes at the shore of the river in Borno, and the indigenes keep lamenting that it's as a function of the, oil stuff going on there. I don't know if anybody has seen, a video of that, like a lot of stuff's happening in that region. The author also states that whether the country can seize the opportunity that the new oil presents today. But while reading this book, I was forced to go and check like when the book was written, how old the book is, because nobody's actually talking about oil again. So I'm expecting that even when you're writing on this topic, right, we just, take it with a grain of salt. Yes, we can add flesh to the writings, but just, it's not, I'll just explain. Let me not decide for you. Okay. So she also states the impact of, it's more than, yeah, okay. Also states the impact of Asian national corporations in Nigeria oil industry. So we have Sinopec, we have different like Chinese company coming in, Korean company coming in and benefiting from our oil industries, taking it back to their countries and cashing out big time. We also have Western nations. We still have, the US benefiting. We have UAE, all these countries still benefiting from Nigerians oil. So she asked the question that the Western multinationals in Nigeria, it should not be exaggerated. It is what it is. Like they are there. They are the ones that actually own the oil industry. And the people have nothing for it. So the fundamental question remains, can oil be a catalyst for Nigeria's rise on basic of an alternative development model? Meaning that since we found out that we have oil, can that be a premise for us to develop? That's a question that she's asking in this chapter. So we're going to move to the conceptual perspective to state oil nexus in Nigeria. So what this simply means is the relationship between the state and the oil. So relationship between country and oil, the relationship between Nigeria and oil. You cannot talk about Nigeria without talking about oil. In fact, when you put Nigeria on the internet and you're reading anything about Nigeria, oil will be part of it. You cannot just talk about. People say, oh, Madweke Allison, she was able to, be OPEC chairman or whatever the case is because of Nigerians' role in oil production in the world, which, yeah, it's not far from the truth. So the abundance of natural resources, especially in oil, on one hand, then on the second hand, we have to think about the negative economic, political, and social outcome of oil. So on one hand, we're like, oh my God, we have abundance of these natural resources. And on the second hand, we're like, okay, what has this done to us negatively in terms of economic, political, and social outcome in general? This perspective also posts the oil-rich developing countries such as Nigeria are likely to be trapped in corruption, conflict, and afflicted by the paradox of plenty. So this simply means that you cannot really take away, oil boom and all those things from the issues that are happening. So in the first chapter, we noted that Africa is, plagued by violence, chaos, corruption, and all that stuff. Yes, they are, part of us, no doubt, yes. But when we talk about Nigeria, we cannot really take, say we are not corrupt, because it's obvious to everybody we have so much oil, yet we cannot even boast of 4 states in the country that there is no, like, before you see a pothole, is like you're looking for like diamond stone. Before you even, the proximity of people's houses to healthcare center, the proximity from people's houses to schools, education center, like the basic amenities that the state needs to provide. We can't even boast of it. So of course the leaders are corrupt, because where are all the money going into, right? So you cannot really remove all developing nations, especially Nigeria, from that conversation of corruption and conflicts. So the prevailing political logic is the concentration of power in a few hands. So meaning that because of the kind of oil that, so we're talking about Nigeria and the oil in Nigeria, right? So we're talking about the relationship between, so the first one, conceptual perspective to state oil nexus in Nigeria. So when we talk about the political logic behind oil in Nigeria, we get to understand that, okay, this oil has also played a role in class division and concentration of power to a certain class of people. And that's why you see people in Niger Delta, they are so pissed that we have the oil. Why are the Northerners in charge of the oil? Why are we, when you look at the NNPC chairman, he's a Northerner. When you look at people that own oil wells, they are mostly not Northerners. So they are really pissed about it. But what happened? What was happening in the political space when oil was found? It was in the hands of a Hausa leader. So what's the expected? You give it to your people. So that concentration of power has come from somewhere, and that is oil. These people have money. And remember that once you have economic empowerment, you can also influence all the smaller things around you. So you can then enforce like political empowerment as well, right? So you see people, oh, I'm not playing politics, so, but yet they're funding somebody and somebody is pushing their interest in legislation, right? So that's what oil has done in Nigeria. Another thing is, we talk about the high stake political contention and the ultimate price of oil. When people are even talking about, development, when people, I might need to end this session earlier. I'm really, really sorry. I'm just gonna attend to my child. I'm sorry. Please. I'll just try and wrap up this, but I need to go. So this behavior has been linked to endowment of elite behavior, conflict, misgovernance in rich oil states, drawn upon us from issues around the discovery of oil, the exploration of the oil itself, creating industries, factories, and all that will support the oil industry. Another thing, reports of insurgency in Niger Delta has resulted in the reduction of daily crude oil exportation. So we used to do like 2.6 million barrels in 2006. As of 2008, it went down to 1.6 million barrels. Then we have issues of kidnapping, killings, even to international expatriates, right? So that has also caused, issues in the oil production in Nigeria. So do expatriates want to come to Nigeria? What is really happening in the country, right? And the funny thing about this is that when we have expatriates coming from their country and they say, oh, they're coming to Nigeria, because of the insecurity in Nigeria and the issues that they are going to face, conflict, even if they are coming to sit in Lagos as an expatriate, the money their company will pay them will be so high compared to if Nigeria was a peaceful country, no chaos, you can come, you can live your life peacefully, they can earn lesser than what they're earning. But because it's now tagged as high risk, these people are earning a lot. And it's also influencing the margin that happens. So if you go to cities where, so I'll use Bonny Island for example, because they have LNG there, right? And they have expatriates there. The cost of living in Bonny Island is so high that even the people that live there cannot even afford to live there, right? Even the people that are from there, they are complaining. These oil companies have come, they've made things high, but our people are not going to school, our people are not educated, they can't even work in that company to earn the kind of money that their expatriates are earning. So this chapter actually takes note of that when they're talking about the states. It's also important that the assumption of the resources as a cause is important to note, right? In the development of Nigeria, it is very critical for us to accept our position that yes, we have oil, and this is what oil has done to us in return. So if we cannot move past understanding Nigeria's struggle with the oil industry and say, okay, you know what, let's not accept everything like, okay, oil contributed to it. Let's not misinterpret what is going on. Let's not have wrong assumption about what is going on. But the truth of the matter is that there is not, because the bulk of the money that we have for our development and our national interest, the bulk of it comes from oil. We cannot eliminate that conversation. We cannot say, oh, let's not talk about it. Oh, it's not important to us, or it's not relevant today. It is a key part of the conversation. Now, the state and oil in Nigeria. African oil giant is Nigeria, and is very critical to the regional stability and energy security interests for Africa when it comes to world politics. So that's why you see a country is having conflict, you are calling Nigeria to come and help, come and do this big brother role and doing all those stuff. They're in that position because they have something that other world nations want. So Nigeria as a country have a resource that a lot of nations are banking on. And again, the African continent is looking up to Nigeria in terms of that resources. Yes, we have countries like Gabon, Cameroon, Ghana has just found oil. We have them. But when we think about the, amounts of oil that Nigeria have, it cannot be compared, right? So that's what this chapter is talking about. It also reinforces the fact that it poses regional largest military strengths. So when we talk about, remember we wrote a paper about, I can't remember, in international politics, wrote a paper about, but then one of the characteristics, tangible, intangible, we had to give Nigerians a military capability as an example. I can't remember, but you all know the assignments we did for international politics semester. So hold on to that. All these have played a key role in peacekeeping since the 90s. So two issues flow from the conversation about oil. The first, it relates to the extent to which oil defines the nature of Nigerian states, right? Nigeria as a state, what has oil made us look like, right? Oil has made us look very rich. Oil has made us look very corrupt at the same time. The second point relates to the prevailing evaluation of methodologies on the basis of development, so measurements, incorrect specification of the models, high probability of, I'm getting disoriented, yeah. So the second point relates to evaluation methodology. So how do we look at development? How do we inculcate that into our system? Sometimes when we push for some initiative, right, they'll say, oh, don't even do that there. That country, that community is, they have people that can do. So I've been in a room where we're talking about, oh, we want to go to somewhere in Niger Delta to create some empowerment programs and rest. And they're like, that's not for you to do. That's already Shell doing their CSR. Or that's already Mobile doing their CSR. And they're like, do you know if these people are actually doing this community social responsibility that they're expected to do? You don't know if they're doing it. So when we are doing, evaluations and methodologies, it just, because of the way the state is, it's just, we miss out on some places because we assume, right? So the first point talks about the cost of, oil in Nigeria. How do people see us? the oil resources, does it feed into our democracy? Does it feed into our political stability? Does it help our development? And the second, like I said, relates to the influence of oil in political, regional peace and development in general. So when you think about the two issues, the first one relates to the extent of which oil defines the nature of Nigerian states and its capacity to manage the immense oil resources, it has to feed into democracy, political stability, and development. The second relates to the implication of the influence of oil on political economy for regional peace and development. So think about the first thing. So when we're writing this paper, I want to believe that when we are inculcating chapter 4 into it, we are saying that, Africa is the way it is. But in the Nigerian perspective, it's unfortunate that we have large resources, yet we cannot use it to influence or to impact our health sector and also empower women. How many women are in the engineering sector? How many women can all these oil companies recruit? How are these oil companies promoting women in STEM, right? So we believe from our development knowledge, sociology of development, that if a woman is educated, the chances of her, so there's a saying that says, educate a woman and you've educated a nation, right? Or you've saved the nation. So from that aspect, based on our topic, you can, develop points from it. Another thing, beyond oil lies the struggle of citizenship rights, right? Self-determination for ethnic minorities in a federal system, legitimacy of the state as a factor of unity and equitable representation of distribution of multi-ethnic context. So in this talk, I like to talk about federal character in this, right? Which we wrote a paper on again, last semester. So in this part of this book, she's talking about how with the whole chaos happening around oil and these natural resources in Nigeria, we also struggle with citizenship rights. So people are saying that, is it because our region don't have oil, that's why we don't have XYZ? Forgetting the uniqueness of each region and what each region brings to the table. So you now see people pacify themselves as, ethnic minority, ethnic majority, and all those terms. And it now infiltrates into the federal system and also legitimacy of a state, meaning that people can then say, Nigeria doesn't care about us. We're not even Nigerians, right? So it's because of things like that we see people talk about Bakassi nations and the rest. So please, I beg you in the name of God, I need to go, but I promise to develop the slides and share with you guys. I can see that people are just leaving. Is it boring? I'm sorry. Razak, please, I need to leave, please.
You've done so well.
Please, it's not boring, no.
Maybe I understand this should be like a 1 hour session, but I must confess, you've done 1 hour, 10 minutes. I know you are not tired yet, but notwithstanding, for the sake of others, I think we should. You've not completed the assignments now, right?
No. I've not completed it. So
apparently we can still have the other session as a part 2 for this one. So it's okay for me. Yeah. It's okay. So we can call it a day for today, so while we can have the other session.
I hope people are getting the concept of the assignment too.
Sorry?
I hope you guys are getting the concept of the assignment. In fact, I'm not sure.
Sure.